My name is Noam Bar, Cultural Attaché of the Israeli Embassy. Co-hosting this ceremony with me is Mr. Clemens Stolzenberg, Head of Culture Section at the German Embassy. On behalf of the German and Israeli Embassies, it gives us a great pleasure to welcome you to this special event. As you may have noticed, the Israeli and German embassies are neighbors. However, the strong relationship between us goes far beyond the geographical proximity. In the last few years, the two embassies have had successful cultural collaborations, and we are fortunate enough to have the opportunity to collaborate once again, this time to honor William Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you, Noam. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to now invite Mr. Norman Miller, co-founder of the Indigenous Friends of Israel, to deliver an acknowledgement of country.
I acknowledge Hashem, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. The creator of heaven and earth. I acknowledge the Ngunnawal, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present, and emerging. I acknowledge the Cooper family and Leonie Drummond and John Higgins here today. My Aboriginal name is Munganbana, meaning mountain water, and I'm from the Jirrabul, Barbaram, and Wajinbari Yindinji tribes. I acknowledge the 12 tribes of Israel, and I recognize the Jewish people are indigenous to Israel and have returned to their ancient homeland. I acknowledge all the dignitaries here today, in particular Ambassador of the State of Israel to Australia, His Excellency Mr. Amir Maimon, and the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany and Australia, Her Excellency Ms. Betay Gursky, and coming together today to install a plaque on your adjoining embassy fence. You are not only honouring a great Aboriginal Christian Australian who stood up for the Jews at Kristallnacht in 1938, but the enduring friendship of your two nations post-World War II. William Cooper also brought an enduring friendship between Indigenous and Jewish peoples. The protest by William Cooper and the Australian Aborigines League of the cruel persecution of the Jews was remarkable because he and his people were not citizens in their own land. As co-founder with my wife Barbara of the Indigenous Friends of Israel International, we declare that there are Indigenous people worldwide who stand with you. You are not alone. We pray for the captives to come home soon and safety for Jews everywhere. The people of Israel live. Om Yisrael, Hi. These two clapsticks are joined together to represent unity between Israel and Germany, and unity between Aboriginal and Jewish people, just as the two sticks were joined together in Ezekiel 37.
Thank you very much, Norman, for speaking from the heart. We gather here today to honor the extraordinary legacy of William Cooper, an inspirational Aboriginal leader and activist who is known for fighting for the rights of his community, as well as for the rights of other minorities. 86 years ago, on 6th December 1938, in a remarkable act of solidarity, Cooper, along with the Australian Aboriginal League, organized a petition and a protest against the persecution of Jewish people in Nazi Germany following Kristallnacht. The pioneering action, which included a march to the German consulate in Melbourne to deliver a petition, stands as a testament to William Cooper's compassion and courage. It is believed to be the only protest of its kind worldwide at this time. Cooper's unwavering dedication to social justice and human rights continues to resonate with us today.
I would like also to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Ngunnawal people, and to pay my respect to their elders, past and present. I also extend our respect to any First Nations people here with us today. Colleagues, dear ambassadors, high commissioners, members from the Jewish community, my friends from the Christian community, the indigenous community, members from the media, and of course my dear colleague, the German ambassador and her team. William Cooper's story is one that must be told, not just once, not twice, but endlessly. That is why we gather here today to commemorate and celebrate his heroism and courage. A proud Yota man, William Cooper's enduring legacy is profound, rooted in his unwavering dedication to the advancement of Indigenous people and his role as a strong visionary leader. He tirelessly advocated for his own community. However, his efforts did not end there, as his compassion and sense of justice extended to everyone he encountered. On the night of November the 9th, 1938, Nazi leaders unleashed a series of pogroms against the Jewish population across Germany and its territories. The horrific event, later named Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, known also as the pogroms of November, was named for the shattered glass that littered the streets after Jewish-owned businesses, schools, synagogues, books and homes were destroyed. Approximately 30,000 Jewish men, women and children were taken to concentration camps, and around 91 Jews were murdered. Kristallnacht set a chilling precedent for the atrocities that the Nazi government were willing to commit against the Jewish community. Unfortunately, as we all know, the persecution did not end that night, leading to the murder of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. On December the 6th, 1938, just weeks after Kristallnacht, and a time when he himself endured constant injustice, William Cooper stood up for the Jewish people who, thousands of miles away, faced unimaginable horrors. He led a delegation to the German consulate in Melbourne to deliver a letter condemning the atrocities of the Nazi regime. This act wasn't just a gesture of solidarity. It was an extraordinary act of global consciousness. Yad Vashem, Israel's official Holocaust Memorial Museum, later recognized Cooper as the initiator of the only private protest worldwide against Kristallnacht, a man who in 1938 was busy fighting for indigenous rights, became one of the few in the world to speak out for the Jewish people. However, 86 years later, we are again witnessing the horrifying resurgence of the same hatred and violence that mark that dark chapter in history. Jewish people around the world are under siege, enduring relentless acts of intimidation and violence. Australia is not immune to this vile pandemic of Jew hatred. Jewish neighborhoods are being targeted with protests, and our places of worship are being burned. I strongly condemn the attack on the Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne today, a heinous act that serves as a chilling reminder that anti-Semitism is not a relic of the past, but a growing threat that demands immediate actions, not empty words. Never again has become a hollow promise, as the very evils it vowed to prevent are happening once more. It is up to all of us to ensure that never again is not just a phrase, but a reality we fight for, here and now. Today it's all about William Cooper, and I would like to thank the members of William Cooper family, Leonie, who are present here with us today. I would like to thank William Cooper for his remarkable courage. In today's world, standing up for others, even when it may have negative consequences, is a rare virtue. I would like also to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our German friends, to my German colleague. You're not just a colleague, a partner and a neighbor, and on top of everything, a dear friend. And for that, I would like to thank you and to thank also your team. William Cooper was brave enough to stand up for the Jewish community 86 years ago. We need today more people like him. Thank you.
Let me start by paying my respect to the traditional owners of this land, the Ngunnawal people, and their elders past and present. I would also like to extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people with us today. 86 years ago, on the 9th and 10th November 1938, the Nazi regime unleashed a series of pogroms against Jewish citizens throughout Europe and throughout Germany and recently occupied territories. The pogroms were primarily carried out by paramilitary forces, along with, in many places, active participation of members of the Hitler Youth and German citizens. During these 2 days and one night, known as Kristallnacht or November pogroms, German authorities looked on the terror unfolding without intervening. They did nothing in order to protect the life, the well-being, and the property of Jewish citizens. These events set a precedent to the atrocities that the Nazi regime, alongside its willing helpers and collaborators, committed: persecution, arrest, torture, and ultimately the deliberate and systematic mass murder of the Holocaust. When he learned about the events taking place in Germany, Aboriginal political activist and leader William Cooper decided to take action. To him, the persecution of German Jews were a reminder of the discrimination he and his family and friends faced on a daily basis. In an act of extraordinary solidarity and civil courage, he led a delegation of the Aboriginal Australian League to the German General Consulate in Melbourne in order to protest against the persecution of the Jewish population by the Nazi regime. On that day, December 6, 1938, the German General Consul in Melbourne, Dr. Walter Drexler, did not receive William Cooper and the delegation members. It was 79 years later, on the 8th of November 2017, during an act of commemoration at the Australian Embassy in Berlin, that his grandson, Alfred Uncle Boydie Turner, was able to deliver the original note of protest to Dr. Felix Klein, the Special Representative for Relations with Jewish Organizations and Issues relating to anti-Semitism in the Federal Foreign Office. On behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany, he acknowledged the note. Today, I feel honored to express deep respect and gratitude to William Cooper for his act of bravery and solidarity, and to his descendants for keeping the memory of his legacy alive. Thank you, Ms. Drummond, for being with us today and for sharing your great-grandfather's legacy. Tragically, anti-Semitism is not a problem of the past. In Germany and elsewhere in Australia, numbers of anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise. And in this respect, media reports about an arson attack on the Adass Israel synagogue in Melbourne this morning are deeply concerning. Thankfully, firefighters called to the premises have been able to contain the fire and no person seems to have been injured. When it comes to fighting anti-Semitism, in German government remains committed, as it has been in the past, to combat anti-Semitism in all its forms, nationally and internationally. The fight against anti-Semitism remains a key responsibility of our constitutional democracy and of German society as a whole. For this reason, in 2023, German government has adopted a whole-of-government strategy to combat anti-Semitism and to foster Jewish life in Germany. That includes strengthening resources for the legal prosecution of anti-Semitic offenses, extensive protective measures for Jewish institutions, and additional federal government funding to combat and prevent anti-Semitism. Internationally, Germany is supporting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and has assumed its chairmanship in 2020-21, with the focus to fight against any diminishing or distortion of the Holocaust. In Australia, our embassy has been able to support this objective together with our partners in Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Perth, by means of co-funding projects of Holocaust education and research at schools, universities, Holocaust museums, and Holocaust educational centers. I believe William Cooper's story holds a valuable lesson for us today. It remains important to continue sharing William Cooper's stories of persistence, courage, and determination, as it reminds us to protect the values of democracy wherever in the world we may live. Thank you for your attention.
One of the great parts of being a Member of Parliament is actually going out and talking to school groups. And during the week I was at a tiny little school called Grahamvale Primary School and I was asked to talk to the students about leadership. And I spoke about leadership's not just a title that you're given, it's not just the badge that you might get if you're the school captain, but it's about the actions. Whilst we celebrate each other's cultural differences, the humanity that binds us is much stronger than any of those differences. And I hope that we hold on to that in Australia because it's something that is critical to our social cohesion. And the events in Melbourne today at the synagogue are heartbreaking and indicates that we need to continue to learn and show the example of William Cooper's leadership, to step in for people who are bullied, to step in for people who are marginalised, to look at each other's humanity as a stronger bind than the differences we may have.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak this morning on behalf of my family and my grandfather's work. It is always an honour to share his story. My name's Leonie Drummond and I am the proud great-granddaughter of William Cooper. I acknowledge the lands and the waterways of the traditional owners on which we meet today and pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. William Cooper, a Yorta Yorta man, had a vision for his people, to live a better life and to be treated as equal citizens in a land that he stated, by divine right, was theirs. His story is one of great courage and strength. His fight for his people was tireless, and during this time he also recognised and spoke up for other marginalised groups that were being persecuted halfway around the world at the beginning of World War II. William Cooper was born in 1860 near the junction of the Dungala and the Keila, the Murray and the Golden Rivers, on the lands of the Willithika clan of the Yorta Yorta people, the ancestral land of his mother, Nanny Kitty. A few decades prior, the Yorta Yorta had been decimated by the imported diseases such as smallpox, then dispossessed of their land by the colonists, who had established a vast pastoral station such as Moira. Yorta Yorta were forced to live on the fringes of colonial society in camps. Nanny Kitty survived this devastation and successfully raised 8 children, including William. William's traditional name was Yokabarinya, which means dry leaf floating on a creek. Born into 2 cultures from the moment of his birth, he was destined to endure a life of disadvantage and exclusion. In 1874, the Maloga Mission was founded by Daniel and Janet Matthews on the New South Wales bank of the Murray River near present-day Moama. Nanny Kitty arrived with her children to find shelter, basic education and food supplies. This is where William converted to Christianity. Maloga grew into a small village and farm, with the school operated by British educated Tamil from Mauritius, Uncle Thomas Shajak James, who later married William's sister Auntie Ada. By the mid-1880s, the Aboriginal Protection Board became resentful of Matthew's control at Maloga, and in 1887 the Cummeragunja Mission was established. William lived his youth witnessing the frontier of change. He saw the destruction of his homelands and the dispossession of Aboriginal people right across Australia. William had many hardships in his life, losing 2 children, one being Daniel Cooper. Private Daniel Cooper was killed in action at the Battle of Menin Road, Ypres, in Belgium on the 20th of September 1917. A typhoid outbreak on Cummeragunja in 1889 took the life of William's infant son, Bartlett, and a few weeks later his wife, Annie. He married Agnes Hamilton in 1893, which they had 5 children. Agnes tragically passed away from tuberculosis in 1909. William was now making decisions for the good of his family, which saw them packing up and moving off Cummeragunja due to the increasingly harsh conditions due to the management and the revocation of the land grants and their subsequent relocation to the white farmers. In 1933, William moved to Footscray with his 3rd wife, Nanny Sarah. They soon began to assemble a group of Melbourne-based kinfolk from Cummeragunja and other Victorian reserves to form the Australian Aborigines League. Over the next 8 years, the League embarked upon a program of grassroots political advocacy. Corresponding with the Prime Ministers and the Premiers, the Ministers and the bureaucrats, writing letters to newspapers, speaking at political rallies and events, and raising funds to continue the cause. William Cooper's famous petition to the King was a commitment to see change for his people. He knew firsthand that non-Aboriginal people and their governments did not understand the needs of his people or appreciate the desperate situation they were in. His message was that governments could not deliver meaningful change without a representative in Parliament. The petition, which took several years, was signed by over 1,800 signatures from Aboriginal people all across our country. In 1937, William finally sent the petition to the federal government and requested it be forwarded to the King. The government declined to do so. William, along with Uncle William Ferguson and Uncle Jack Patton, both from the Aborigines Progressive Society in New South Wales, planned a meeting in Sydney to mark the occasion as the Day of Mourning. This day protest coincided with Australia's 150th anniversary celebrations of the 26th of January in 1938. On the 6th of December in 1938, 86 years ago today, a delegation of the League members met at Cooper's home in Southampton Street, Footscray, which was also headquarters to the Australian Aborigines League. They decided to protest after reading the newspaper about the persecution of European Jews on the 9th and 10th of November in 1938. This event now referred to as Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass. This too have signalled the beginning of the Jewish Holocaust. The League passed a resolution condemning the treatment of Jewish people by the Nazi regime. They walked 11 miles into the consulate in Collins Street, Melbourne, with the intention of meeting with the council to hand over a letter of protest. The delegation was denied entry. Working alongside members of the Jewish community, my father, Uncle Boydie Turner, continued the work of his beloved grandfather. In 2012, on the 74th anniversary of the original protest, my father and other supporters and family, including Holocaust survivors, reenacted the walk from Footscray to the German consulate. The German Consul General met with my father and received a replica of the League's letter of protest. 2017 saw my father head to Germany to be welcomed by Dr. Felix Klein to formally receive a replica of the original protest letter. Dad also ensured that his grandfather's petition to the King was also followed through. So on May 2014, the 47th anniversary of the 1967 referendum, a replica petition of 1,814 signatures was presented by my dad to General Sir Peter Cosgrove in Canberra. On the 5th of August 2014, the Governor-General handed the replica to Queen Elizabeth at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Today, it was important to talk about his life, and although some are familiar with the protests to the King and the march to the German consulate, I hope I was able to share with you more about who he was as a man. He was an inspirational leader, supported by both Aboriginal leaders and non-Aboriginal allies, like Mrs. Bailey and Mr. Bardot. He was always working against the odds. To this very day, it's hard to fathom that a man that had no rights in his own country continued the fight, wondering if anyone would ever listen. Unfortunately, Grandfather saw little reward for his work in his lifetime. To his family and the family that knew him, he was kind and loving, and this was evident in the way he took in several grandchildren so they didn't find themselves displaced. My father's memories of the time when he lived with him are priceless. One of Dad's roles was to open the front door to all the League members on the meeting days. He was to be seen but not heard, but remembers the faces of the likes of Auntie Mudge Tucker and Uncle Bill Innes. They would often be walking by candlelight and resting over warm wool blankets to keep them warm as they worked. There was a place on the river, Yarra River in Melbourne, where people on a Sunday would go and share their thoughts. My dad would often go with him for company and carry his grandfather's soapbox. William would go for his people to spread the word about the ill treatment of Aboriginal people to anyone that would listen. Sometimes they took the tram and other times they walked, the 11 mile in and the 11 mile out. My dad loved him and is forever grateful that he took him in and led by example as a real father figure in his life. Australia should be proud of him and other Aboriginal leaders that have paved the way for us today. I wish to thank both the Israel and Germany ambassadors for coming together for today's event. Thank you.
As we approach Shabbat, the Jewish day of rest, we extend our wishes for a peaceful and restful weekend. Finally, let us all pray for the swift and safe return of the Israeli hostages held captive by Hamas in Gaza. Thank you once again for joining us, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.